Well, good morning and welcome to my YouTube channel. So this morning I've come up to Glencoe and this is Rannoch Moor. Alright, so I'm going to attempt to walk on that island and see if there's any kind of interesting trees or different viewpoints. So if I can stand on the top one of the points in that island, I might get a different view across the loch. So let's see how we get on. Right, so I've safely arrived on this wee island, and as I've come here, what I've done is I've spotted a couple of trees here that are quite nice. So I'm just going to take my big stopper out and I'll set up the composition. That's actually quite nice. I'm just going to adjust the polarizer to see where I get the best effect. Right, so I've got a composition here. I'll just give it a wee bit more space. I'm going to focus in on the tree there. Right, so the composition I've got is, I've got the two trees on the right hand side, and I've got an inlet of water here on my left hand side. But the second tree is actually helping the balance of the image, because the second tree is actually pointing out towards the top right hand side image, and it's actually quite nice. It's a really nice balance. So I've got 25th of a second, ISO 160 and f16, but my exposure meter is saying it's way underexposed, so I've just lifted my exposure by 2 stops and I've changed my shutter speed to a 15th of a second. I'm now at f16, ISO 100. I'll take that shot and that could be a nice image. Right, so I've got my composition here. Let's keep walking round this little island and see what more we can find. So I've just come to the other side of the wee island, and there's a couple of trees on this piece of land, but the mountain range is in the background and it's absolutely beautiful. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add in a ND grad filter. This is a 0.6, just so that I can see and give myself some depth in the top of the image. Just push that down. Right, so I've got bulb mode, f18, ISO 160, and let's see how 45 seconds goes with this, because it is still bright. Yeah, let's see. That noise you can hear are all the geese, and I'm hoping that they stay around long enough, because I'm not in their way. Maybe get some shots of them landing if I'm lucky enough. But what I'll do is I'll stop rabbiting on and I'll share this image with you. Alright, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to zoom in to the scene, and I'm just going to tighten the crop a bit, and then I'll have the boulder in front of me, because what I need is the tip the tip of the land sticking out of the water. So what I'll need to do now is just refocus, focus in on the tree. Right, let me just double check that that's focused properly. It's hard to tell when you've got these big stoppers on, so and it's a 10. So when I say a big stopper, what I mean is the filter's a 10 stop filter. So right, let's try this. I've got f18, ISO 160, and I'll leave it on for at least 45 seconds. I've zoomed in, so I've got the big rock in the foreground, I've got those two trees, that tree in the right, and the Black Mountain Range in the background, and I'll show you that image now. Wow, right, so that's a nice image. So now I'm going to zoom in even further, and what I want in this image is the tree with the tip of the mountain in the background. I'll just check my composition again. I don't want to lose the mountains out of the image. So, right, so here we go. I'm still keeping f18. I'm still keeping my ISO at 160. I'll just see if I can drop the ISO to 125 or 100 actually. So I've readjusted the ISO to 100. I've got f18, and again I'll use this. I'll put this shutter on for 45 seconds, and I'll show you that image. Do you know, I'm standing here and there's a nice little composition with this old tree. There's a small tree, then I've got the water between myself and the mainland, and then I've got the mountains with the snow. The only thing is, to get back to take the shot, the water looks really deep beside me, so I doubt if that'll be possible. I'll try it, and let's keep walking around the island. Alright, so I've come over here because I've got a composition where I've got those two trees and a little tree on the right hand side, and I've got the mountains in the background. I've got f18, ISO 125. I'm kind of staying over in the left hand side so that my shadow's out of the image, because the sun is still behind me and it's still casting my shadow, but I'm hoping that the focal distance that I've set the camera up, actually it won't matter about the shadow. So what I'll do next is I'll zoom in further into the image. Again, I'll take a long exposure shot, and then I'll share whatever images I capture, I'll share them with you now. Right, so I've got a wee composition here where I've got the little tree on the right hand side, I've got mountains in the background, and I'm just pushing that filter down just so there's clouds starting to appear behind the mountain, although with a long exposure they'll probably get smoothed out, but it might be quite nice. But what I can do is a fast shutter speed, and if I need to I can add it in, but I'm going to give it probably about 60 seconds. So what I'll do is, the number of images that I take I'll share with you, because I've got quite a wide view here. I'm then going to take a close-up shot of the tree, and then I'll try and get a composition where I've just got the mountains and the tree as zoomed in as much as possible. And then what I'll then do is, there's that island, there's no point in taking a shot at that island because the tree is completely camouflaged by the background and there's absolutely no separation. There's nothing behind me yet because I need to keep walking round that direction. So once I finish here, I will walk along the edge of the island and I'll try and get a shot of the tree from a distance because I'm really conscious that my shadow keeps getting cast and I don't want my shadow in the image. Right, what I'll do is I'll share these images with you and I'll move to a different location. Alright, so I've actually been taking quite a number of shots from freezing images and long exposure images, and I've taken a number of shots mainly around the compositions around the tree, compositions around the big rock in front of the tree, compositions of the mountain range, because we're starting to get some clouds at the peaks of the mountains now and it's really smart. I've taken a shot of that wee island. I don't know if that's going to work. And then I've taken shots of the rocks and the water. And what I'll do is I'll share those images with you and hopefully they turn out. So this is going to be my last image here. And what I'm trying to do is get a composition of the tree and the rock and the mountains in the background. The only thing is the breeze has really picked up and the tree is shaking and it's moving around. So I'm hoping it doesn't have too much an effect in the long exposure image. I'm sure it will. The only thing is I've taken a shot where I've frozen the image, but I think it's going to be pretty tricky to try and blend that in, especially when the variation in the water between the freezing of the water and then the long exposure of the water, it'll probably be too much to try and blend. But anyway, the composition is nice, the mountains are absolutely beautiful. And the way that those clouds are now sitting and kind of wrapping themselves over the peaks is pretty cool. And we're starting to get shadows in the mountains as well because the sun's shining behind the clouds. So once this shot's finished, what I might do is focus in on the mountains and see if I can zoom in on the mountain as much as I possibly can. I'll keep the tree in the foreground, but my focus is going to be the mountain, and let's see how that works. Because yeah, the little cloud formations are actually adding quite a nice light, quite a nice shadow, quite a nice bit of depth. The only thing is with the long exposure is, because I'm waiting for so long, the clouds are actually moving quite steadily and the clouds will be smoothened out in the image. But we'll see. You've got to try these things, we've got to experiment. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. So that's then going to be my last shot, and then what we'll do is work our way back, work our way around the loch and see if there's any other compositions that we can find. Alright, so I've just walked around a little bit and I've spotted this composition where we've got quite a lot of layers. So as you'll see, we've got this rock, then we've got water. We've then got that bit of land, then we've got water. We've then got the island, then we've got the mountains. So we've got 3-4 layers that we can add into the image. I might have to increase the height of the camera so that I can get the water behind that rock. and that should help to give us depth in the image. So let me have a wee check. Let me see what we've got. Yep, I'm just going to zoom out. Do you know that's that's a really nice image. Now, ideally, and it's never an ideal world, ideally those reeds, would there be no breeze and those reeds would be straight and steady, but because we've got a breeze, that's not quite going to work. So I'm just going to have to try and get a freeze frame image, and then, which is nice, I'll just check that. I'm going to do a long exposure. Now, the risk with a long exposure, as always, is anything that moves, if it's water and you've got a solid object, that's great because it looks smooth. But when you've got all these reeds sticking out, those reeds are going to have movement. But to be fair, it shouldn't stop you taking the image. Ideally it wouldn't be that way, but it is what it is. So hopefully it doesn't detract from the image, and hopefully it makes the image. So let's be positive. So I've just done a 34-second shutter speed. I'm just going to check the reeds in front of me, and yes, they are all blurred. Well, not all of them, but I'll tell you, it is a cracking image. Right, so there's one shot, one composition that I've noticed is from the big rock to the cluster of little rocks over there. They can only be about 40-50 feet long. I've got the big rock on the left hand side and I'm spreading it out to those little rocks on the far right, but I've got the mountains in the background, but my focal point has to be the rock, and I'm just making sure I've got my focus right. I'm at 30th of a second, f16, ISO 100. I'll take that shot, and that's a really nice shot. I'm just going to... Let's move on and find a new location. We'll just keep wandering round the edge of the loch. Alright, so there's two geese right in front of me. I don't want to speak loud because I don't want to interrupt them. But what I've got is a really nice frame here. Because I've got the 24-70 lens, I've got the rocks at the bottom in front of me framing the birds right through the middle, and then I've got the mountains in the background. So I'm just checking my focus. I've got ISO 160, I've got f16 and a 30th of a second exposure, so I'm just double checking that image, and that's really nice. Portrait shot, so let me see if I can turn this round, move away from the birds, turn the filter round, zoom in, let me see where I am. Oh, that could be quite a nice image actually. Right, so if I zoom in on the tree, oh, that wind's really strong because it's blowing my lens and it's struggling to focus. That's nice. Right, so I'm going to work my way back slowly, just so I don't disturb the birds, and then we'll see what viewpoints we've got from where we were. Right, so I'm standing in a bit of a bog. I'm just trying to check the composition that I've got, and there's that battery giving up the ghost. Oh boy, very harsh this morning for batteries. Right, so I'm going to try and work with this battery till it's totally dead, and I'm just going to see. It's that composition. My spirit level says I'm level, but the horizon line looks a bit off. Right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to focus into the centre of the image. I'll take that shot. Right, so that's overexposed, so I need to speed up my shutter speed. So I'm one stop under, and that's a nice image. Right, so let me zoom in on some of the rock and then pull out a little bit, because there's an island there as well. I know the horizon's straight. Well, actually, I'm just checking the horizon is straight, yep. So I'm just going to double check my focus here. Take my shot, and that could be quite a nice image. Right, so I think we'll call it quits. That's me being out for about 4.5 hours now, and the sun's getting so strong it's really starting to burn things out. So here's hoping we can make a video out of this. If you like the video, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed, please do, because you know it's free. And if you press the bell notification, that'll let you know the next time I post a video. So thanks very much for watching, and here's to the next video.